Kitchen Combos with April and Eric. We're in the kitchen with two of our dear friends. I would say not even just dear, we're friends, but more like family.
Yes, definitely.
We've been knowing this couple since the day they met.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've been knowing Josh since he was 15, 16 years old. Way back in the day, I was Josh's youth pastor, and we've grown to be friends and colleagues, and actually we work together. It's so odd. Right?
Yeah.
So
before either of us were old heads.
before either of us was old heads, and we're glad to have Josh and Brittany over. We did their wedding
Yeah.
not long ago, and I've done over 100 weddings, and this probably was one of the most emotional weddings that I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
I
Good
couldn't
job.
stop crying when I was preparing for it. But we've talked with Brittany and Josh before the ceremony, before the wedding, and we talked about the 7 areas that we talk with all people about. So let's get into the discussion and for folks who are considering having kids, and how do you parent, or what would you like to change from how you were parent?
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a Christian household, very what I would characterize as a very Christian household, where religion and church was certainly the center of life and center of certainly the family life. So we went to church every Sunday. We went to Bible study, prayer meeting. You
Band
name it.
practice.
There were points in my life where I was in the church, the physical church building, 6 out of 7 days of the week.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
And so, when it comes to parenting, that certainly, that informed and colored a lot of how my parents did the parenting. So, but on the whole, I think I had a very good childhood, and I think my parents were very genuinely and generally very good parents, and I think if we lived in a different setting, but the setting that I grew up in was, one of the poorer communities in New Jersey, and my parents were working class folks. My dad was a truck driver. My mom was a licensed practical nurse, and there was a need, I think, to be pretty strict and to probably overly shelter us from certain things that were happening in town, and I don't think that I will feel the need to be quite as strict.
I grew up in a much different community, in a community where it was, a private gated golf course. So my parents didn't feel the need to have to be as strict, and just because there wasn't as much, potential trouble that I could get into. I grew up in a Catholic school, my whole life. My parents definitely weren't as involved, although we went to Catholic school. They weren't as heavily involved in the church and activities. But no, I had a great childhood. I think Josh and I, coming from different backgrounds, it's kind of good in a way because I think we'll meet in the middle. Where we're living now, in the community that we're living in now, I think kind of meeting in the middle both ways where we grew up would be appropriate in raising our children, having some obviously rules and boundaries, but I think we both bring different things from our childhood to the future, and it'll be a good thing.
So in terms of you all having kids and going through the whole process of now you can't, I guess you don't know how kids will change you until you have kids. But do you anticipating some changes in your relationship when you do decide to have kids?
Yeah, I think one of the main things is, and especially just getting married, I feel like we revolve everything around us, and selfish in a way, but I think it's appropriate to, have time to yourselves and, you know,
Yes.
go on vacations and trips and have fun, but
Right.
that will be the major change, you know, when we do have kids is becoming, you know, selfless and they're now your number one and not everything just revolves around the two of you.
You know what I'm gonna say.
I mean, I think, well, for one, this was it's a hard question to answer, I think, just
Yeah.
because we're not parents and have never been
Yeah.
parents, and we have no idea what it's going to be like. And, you know, one of the things we've talked with people that are parents, and, you know, you get this wide spectrum of, you know, once the kids come, like, they're the most important thing, and, like, they're even more important than the spouse is, and it's like, that's something that I think I disagree with, and you know, I think there's a way that you can frame it and view it as, you know, the family as a whole is the most important thing, which includes all of the people, not just
Not
just the spouse and not
Right.
just the kids or
Right.
one of the prodigy kid and the kid that you don't like.
Right.
You know? I'm just kidding.
Like he's saying, you know, I think it's finding a balance. Of course, you know, time with each other is important, but now you have this person, you know, this person that you're responsible for, you know, and right now we just have dogs, so it's gonna be very different.
Two dogs.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the one thing that I try and tell people, you know, especially if they're, you know, having kids or getting ready to have kids or want to have kids, is that you can't lose sight of each other. Like you have to make time for each other.
Yeah.
Even if that kid is a newborn, 6
Right.
months, 5 years old, you have to make time for mommy and daddy. You know, what I'm trying to tell people is that I love my kids unconditionally. I'm going to take care of them 100%, but I love my husband more. He was there with me before they got here. You know, and I think a lot of people lose sight of that, where their whole world just revolves around these kids. Then what happens is your kids leave the house, go away, and now you two are together. You don't even know each other anymore.
Right.
You're like, who's this person I'm with? Because your whole life has revolved around these kids for 18, 20 years. You know what I mean? You lose sight of each other. So I just wanted to throw that out there just to be mindful, because it happens to so many people.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with somebody that I know pretty well who have I think 4 kids, and what she said was that they had made a decision when they decided to have kids that the kids were going to adjust to their life rather than the other way around. A lot of people go into it thinking that their life is gonna, well, obviously your life is going to change.
Right.
But you know, her kids, you know, you know, we've all experienced the parents who are overwhelmed in public with these kids that, you know, are running around like crazy people and you know, are difficult to deal with, and you know, her kids are not that way because they learned at a very young age, when they were little babies, that, you know, this is how life is going to be, and so, you know, they're very well behaved kids, and you know, I hope that I can do the same.
That's what in kitchen conversations with A&E is just having healthy conversations, or having conversations about these 7 areas, and I'm glad, you know, to be here with you two, because it's we've watched you guys grow. We plan to watch you guys grow and have kids. We plan to be a part of that, and you know, it's important to hear from you all as we're learning from you too. Now we have all adults. And we don't have any plans to have any more, you know.
No, we're not. Yeah, I mean, the next one would be
eventually.
grandkids. Yeah, but we're not rushing that. That's not a rush.
But just to hear you all talk about it, I think, and having other folks who are watching this learn from a young couple like yourself who are starting out and thinking about and planning to have children, and that's important. You know, planning. You know, my kids were spaced out intentionally. We planned our kids to the T and spaced out intentionally. And I think sometimes people forget that you can actually plan.
It doesn't have to be an accident.
No, you can actually plan to have kids and feel you know, and work your way through. So I just want to thank Josh and Brittany for coming.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Yeah, and just one of our favorite sayings that you can have a perfect relationship, but
perfect doesn't mean without flaws.
Exactly, there are perfect moments, there are perfect days, but there's also challenges. So we like to say we have a perfect marriage.
We do.
Thank you, Josh and Brittany.
Thank you for having us.